Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from AnthonysCustoms, and for this review, we are looking at the SH Figuarts Justice League Batman, which is one that I'm very excited to show you. I just realized he's leaning pretty far back on the stand. That looks bad. That's my bad, guys. I apologize. But anyway, you guys know I really like the Justice League version, or the modern version, the Ben Affleck version of Batman. So I've been very excited to see this figure, and I've heard some people say that's not very good, and some people say that it's just fine, it's fantastic even, or great, or just terrible. You know, lots of different verdicts on this guy. So we're going to take a close look at him and see what we can figure out. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and do just that. This guy stands just about 16 centimeters, which puts him at only about 6¼ inches, which is definitely undersized for your 1/12 scale figures. For those of you that are interested in mixing them in, you're going to have to be a little bit creative with your posing if you're going to do that. He's definitely a little short considering he's supposed to be fairly tall. I think he's 6'4" in the movie, so not quite the size some of you might be hoping for, but it's not supposed to be, so I think that's okay. As far as the paintwork on this guy goes, it does have shading throughout, which definitely helps to make it look good. It seems to be lacking in the lower torso. It could definitely use more shading around the lower torso. And here's the thing, like, I don't mind the way it looks, but I think it would have looked way better if they went with like a dry brush technique for the entire thing like it is in the movie, so that it has that really not intricate, but heavy texturing that's on there. It would have definitely made it look better, but I don't think it looks bad as it is. It's fine. Fine is a good word for it. Paintwork is clean though, for like the bat and the belt. That's all done well. The gloves have nice paintwork on them. It's all very clean, nicely done. The boots, again, no problem at all. And then the face. I think the likeness is not bad. It's definitely good enough. I don't have any real issues with it. It's a little glossy. And maybe, just maybe, the head is a tiny bit big, only because the upper body looks a little small because they had to do the articulation. So I think they could have kind of cheated just a little bit, maybe shrunken the head about 5%, and it would have given us that really bulky look that he has in the movie, just because the head to chest ratio is a big factor for superheroes, and they gave him a huge chest and shoulders in the movie. But you can kind of get around it. As soon as you pose him, you're not going to notice that anyway, so I don't really have any issues. And then we'll talk about this more in the articulation, but since he does have a butterfly and ball-pegged, ball-hinge shoulders, you can kind of broaden his shoulders up a little bit to make up for it, so no real issues there. We'll talk about the rest of that once we get into the figure. Let's talk accessories. We have the 2 fist hands that came on him in the package, 2 batarang gripping hands, 2 grapnel gun gripping hands, 2 open hands. We do have his grapnel gun with an interchangeable little clip of the dart thingies, or I guess they're grappling hooks, whatever you call those, they're on there. And then of course we have his batarang. So not a bad spread of accessories, not a huge amount, but definitely enough. Now, there's one issue to talk about before we talk about the articulation, and that is the cape. And I tried to have this conversation with somebody about the last Batman SH Figuarts I reviewed, the Dark Knight version. These plastic things in here, plastic is not great. However, the fact that they are flat pieces of plastic is definitely better than being round. Flat pieces allow you to actually make something take shape, rather than as soon as you try to bend it, it just spins around in the sleeve. Now, the thing about these plastic ones, it's not designed for like any crazy posing. You're just kind of supposed to give it a little bit of shape, just enough to have it hang how you want it to, and it works just fine for that. That's what I was trying to explain to somebody, and they were just like, no, it's plastic, it's crap. Well, it's not supposed to be what you're wanting it to be. So there's an argument to be made there, sure, but I don't mind that the plastic is in here, in that you can just have it draped nicely however you want to, and it does hold shape. You can see I just curled it that way. I can curl it back. It's fine. Is it as good as a flat piece of metal? I don't think so, but it does work as it's intended, and they even say so in the directions, so I can't knock it too much for that. What I can knock it for is the fact that it's just loose right here. These companies keep making wired, or whatever you want to call this, capes where it doesn't connect, which means it doesn't do any good, and it's particularly true of this because the wire is really only just for hanging, so that's all you can really do with this cape. It cannot hold a pose. Some people are going to hate that. I'm fairly neutral because it's what they intended. I don't think it was a good decision, though. It does have some nice pleating in it, though, which looks nicely. It looks nicely. It looks nice, and they did a good job with the material. It's very, very nicely done. Very pleased with it in terms of aesthetics. And then the way the cowl is just fine too. I don't mind that being a fixed plastic piece on there. As far as the articulation goes, we have a double ball peg for the head on top of the neck. I think the neck itself is just a single ball peg, so that's fine. It moves well enough. You're not going to get the craziest poses, but you can definitely pose the head however you really need to. You can give him a little attitude. You can have it look up, look down. It's not the craziest range, but it does look good. There aren't any huge gaps or anything, so I think that'll be okay. He doesn't look down all that well, but it's enough. It'll do. So there you go. As far as the shoulders go, we do have that big butterfly joint in there, which is done pretty well. You can see there's no huge gapping as far as butterfly joints go, so that's all right. You can definitely bring his arm across his chest, which is pretty close to how humans can do it. Last time I said this, a lot of people said I was wrong, but go ahead and try it. You can't bring your arm that far across your chest, especially if you're wearing a big bulky suit or have big bulky muscles. So I think that's just fine. Then we have our ball peg where the arm connects to the butterfly, which lets it move around. Ball hinge, which raises the arm. No problem at all there. Really good range. Of course, full rotation. And the bicep swivel is actually in the shoulder, and that does limit it a little bit. You don't get a ton of bicep swivel. That's about it. So it's a little bit limiting, but I think it's okay. Double jointed elbow works just fine. Looks okay. No problems there. The wrists are on, I'll just show you, little tiny ball hinges, which is not great. The smaller the ball hinge in particular, the worse it works. And ball hinges aren't really necessarily great for things that are recessed anyway, so it's not the best design. Once the hand's on it, you're really just functioning on top of the ball peg and not able to use that hinge. So if you're okay with just a ball peg, then you're going to be okay with that. For the torso, I'm not entirely sure. I think it's just a ball peg. It's very limited. In fact, the torso is probably the worst thing about this guy's articulation. It doesn't lean forward and back very well at all. It leans back a little bit. Almost no forward. Very disappointing in that regard. Side to side just a little bit, but that's pretty standard. We really just have rotation with some leaning. So he's not going to be in any crazy dynamic poses. Is it necessary? That's up to you. I would definitely prefer it to work better, especially since it's not hard to make a ball peg diaphragm joint work. There's just no range in it, which is very disappointing. Belt doesn't really move, so you can't do anything about that. The hips are our old school SH Figuarts hips, meaning it's just a hinged ball peg with a socket and then a thigh swivel around the socket. So there's your thigh swivel. Bringing the legs out to the side, no problem at all. Pretty much all the way, so that's good. Bringing the legs forward, well, they gave them a really wide package, so the legs can go forward, but they go forward at an angle, which is not ideal, and that's with or without that ball hinge. So it's definitely a little bit of an issue. I should mention that the swivel for the thigh is technically a ball peg, so you can kind of work around some of these issues a little bit, but it doesn't have that much range, so it's not going to help that much. But you can pose them. It's just not going to be as good as you might have wanted in terms of range. So it's okay. It's all right. Double jointed knees work nicely, but they are definitely ugly. I don't know why Tamashii Nation started doing this molded knee joint and then adding a piece to it. Just make it all one sculpt. I don't get that, unless they're just reusing these inner parts and putting things on top, but I think these are unique, so I don't really get why it's not just all one sculpt. And then we do have a big gap down here. So functional, but not the best looking, and it's a little loose. It's not like it's floppy loose, but he's not that light, so it's kind of an issue. Now here, okay, I take it back. The torso is not the biggest issue. The ankles are. Double ball peg ankles. And they're really tiny ball pegs. So here's the thing about a ball peg. Quick articulation lesson. The range of motion for a ball peg is completely dependent upon, okay, not completely, it depends on the sculpt too, but it's in terms of the peg itself, completely dependent on the ratio of the size of the ball to the size of the peg. And as you can see, the ball is not that much bigger than the peg, so you don't have any range of motion. And then you have the sculpt on top of it, which as you can see isn't going to allow any either. So you have almost no range in the ankles. It's very, very limiting. So this guy is not going to be in any dynamic poses really, not where he's standing on the ground. So that to me is the biggest issue. All of the other issues, I don't think he's too squatty. I think that's how he's supposed to look based on the movie. The only real thing is maybe you can shrink the head a little bit and that would remove that squattiness, but I don't think we have a better version of the Ben Affleck Batman. So I think this is probably the way to go at this point. Is it perfect? No. Is it highly expensive? I don't think it is. It was like $50 if I remember correctly, so that's about par for the course. So I think it's okay. It's not incredibly impressive, but I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as some people are saying it is. So I would recommend it with a little bit of hesitation. Make sure you watch a video review first, which you just have, and then you'll know what you're getting into and you'll know if you want to get it. But I'm happy to have it. I think it's good enough. It's not what I was hoping for, but it's definitely good enough. So there's my verdict, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos up every single day. We talk about action figures, movies, TV shows, video games, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you come back for that. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. And in the meantime, keep collecting.